You're listening to Faith Connections podcast, where we are dedicated to connecting you to your faith. And now your hosts, Chris and Mari Torres.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to Faith Connections. Chris and Mari
Torres.
Want to welcome you back. We hope that you had an amazing Memorial Day yesterday, that you were able to, remember the fallen. We want to, thank you if you're a family of a service member. Our condolences if you have lost, right, a fellow brother, sister, friend, or family member, defending our country. But we want to thank you for your service. But we also want to remember those who didn't make it back, right? And that's what it's all about. I know people typically come together and, they celebrate, they talk, they kind of recall and share stories of people that they knew or people that they were in combat with. So the segue into today's topic connects to combat, and to not just combat overall, but we know that it's a big thing when you think about percentages and statistics when it comes to our topic today. There's a high number of people that are in the military that have PTSD, right? And you're a testament to that, right? Because you deal with that. And so we're going to be talking about PTSD, but the title of the message is just pushing through, right? PT, pushing through, instead of post-traumatic stress disorder. That's what got placed in our hearts. But I kind of want to start with, what is PTSD, right? And so PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a disorder that develops when a person has experienced or witnessed, a scary, shocking, terrifying, or dangerous event. And I know you have an actual definition.
The definition for post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that is triggered by a terrifying event, either experiencing it or witnessing it. So some of us were in direct combat, saw our fellow brother get shot, or I've seen a vehicle blown up. We've seen a lot of IEDs. So I experienced a lot of that in Iraq. So just witnessing it, symptoms may include flashbacks, nightmares, and severe anxiety. I think when I first came back, I was suffering from a lot of anxiety. And
even years post, right?
Yes. I did. We get little moments in my life where it kind of just spurs up, and I guess I go through a little season where I get anxiety. To some people, it might be severe anxiety, as well as uncontrollable thoughts about the event. There's not a day that goes by that I don't, whether it's when I'm on a chat with a lot of my Army buddies that serve with me overseas. So we talk, we share war stories, and we reminisce. And of course, we go back to those times. So yeah, there's events like this, Memorial Day, when they talk about military, my mind can drift off and go back to certain events, terrifying events as well. So there's different things. Veterans Day, we always think of that. 4th of July, even though it seems like a patriotic day, right? But to us, it means a lot more because we know what the red, white, and blue stand for, and we, what we represent it. So fireworks can sometimes trigger. I remember just getting back from the war. The first 4th of July, fireworks are going off, and I was freaking out because I'm thinking it's incoming rounds, because I experienced a lot of that in incoming mortar rounds where we had to dodge and get into bunkers and gear up. So experiencing that, and that's what PTSD is, and I've been diagnosed with it. Of course, I'm not at a severe level of PTSD. I'm probably like in a moderate level, but I do try to manage it by having a good spiritual life, going to church, and thank God I'm not on medication for PTSD. But I know there's some people who do have to go through counseling, therapy, and take medication for it.
And I know we're connecting it, right, service related, but anyone can have PTSD.
You could have been in a tornado, like right now, the tornadoes that are happening across the United States, across the country. For the people in Oklahoma, Missouri. It
Kansas, could be for Arkansas. People who have been abused. It could be anything.
Sexual assault. If you've been raped, sexual assault.
Any type of event or situation that was just And it says like whether you experienced it or it could even be that you witnessed. Maybe you witnessed somebody else go through something, but because you saw it, you observed it, it can affect you.
And just to share a little bit, like, yes, most of the time PTSD is always attributed to the soldiers and to combat and stuff. As history has shown, there was different names for it back then. It used to be shell shock was the first, during World War I and World War II. When you came back from those soldiers that came back from World War II, they used to call it, they're just shell shock. That was the term that was used. And then the Vietnam era, those people that came back from Vietnam, they call them flashbacks. They're just, you're just getting flashbacks. That was the term that was used. And now you move forward into post 9/11, and that's what they coined the term post-traumatic stress disorder. And as more research was done, and of course the focus was on military, they quickly realized, wait a minute, it's not just happening to our service members. It can be you were involved in a major accident. You were in a car accident and you were hit and hospitalized, right? Let's just say there was severe injury in an accident. Well, guess what's going to happen? There's post-traumatic stress that can come from being involved in a vehicular accident. So you look at getting into your car, you might start getting those anxieties where you don't even want to drive no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you fear going to a red light because it happened at an intersection while you were at a red light.
Correct.
So you might start having fear for red lights.
It's post, meaning it happened after. So something happened. It happened after, right? So post traumatic, it was traumatic for you, for whatever whatever it is that you experienced. Stress, it's stressful, right? Because of the triggers, because of the flashbacks, because of something's being recalled back. It's taking you back to that moment that's triggering something. And then of course it is a disorder, right? So that's really where the term comes from.
Women that might have been sexually assaulted at a young age don't look at men the same way anymore. And that's why maybe they have trust issues in life. And some of them might even go unmarried because of what they experienced back here in their younger years. So therefore they go their whole life being unmarried, or they just don't want to get close to anybody and they don't want to fall in love or experience any relationship with another male counterpart because they feel that, because I was sexually assaulted and I grew up with this incident back here, the post-traumatic stress now carries over and prevents them from having, so that's just different examples that we're giving.
I want to talk about 4 main types of difficulties in PTSD. You mentioned one, and that's reliving the traumatic event through unwanted and recurring memories, flashbacks, or even vivid nightmares. Everyone's different. So it could be if you're placed back in that same situation, that same place, that will kind of trigger, right? You to take, it could be unwanted, but it can take you back to that instance of that experience.
And this is where your senses come into play, because it could be certain sounds, smells.
We've talked about that sights, in another episode.
And,
so that's one of the difficulties. Another one is avoiding reminders of the event, such as thoughts, feelings, people, places, activities, or situations that bring back memories of the event. That affects you, because you know that if that occurs, it's going to take you back, right? It's going to be a trigger. Negative changes in feelings and thoughts, such as feeling angry, guilty, numb, shame. And then the last one is being overly alert and wound up, like irritable, lack of concentration, or easily startled, right? Because you're jumpy. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? Or what's happening?
You're on edge.
It's different. It's interesting because, thinking about, what we do, right? We're really focusing on mental health and going into the Bible and what the Word of God says. Is I know we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a car salesman who was a believer, and he made the comment, like he made this comment. He said, where does it say mental health in the Bible, right? Like it doesn't say the words. It doesn't explain that. And it's true, it doesn't say that. But if you go back to history, right, and you read the Word of God, it might not be, like you said, it was called shell shock, and then it was called
different
flashbacks,
terms,
and then it's finally PTSD. But there was many people in the Bible, and the ones that stand out to me the most because of, they were in combat. They were battling all the time. They were either attacking someone, killing someone, or running from because they were being attacked. Then there were two kings. But I mean, we can talk about so many different things. The judges in the Bible, right? Everything, all that gory, bloodshed and all of that. You can go, I mean, Moses. Yeah, I mean, you can go back and really, Moses, I mean, even him killing that Egyptian worker, like that would have caused some sort of, right? That's an experience. That's, but
the two
Saul and David. Saul and David. And if you think about it, and when you read some of these, like even with David, let's just focus on David and then we can kind of dig deeper with Saul. But when you read, of course, all the battles, him running, him lying. You just preached recently on him lying, right?
The lie. Yes.
Yeah. He said a lie.
King
David did. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about, right? So it's like that, all of that in itself. But when you read not just the stories, but the Psalms, it might not say PTSD, depression, anxiety, but you feel it. You see it. You right?
Well, I have a psalm for the people here, so we'll share it.
Well, let's go. Yeah.
You want to go with it?
Yeah.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wanted to keep going more about the PTSD because knowing that I've been diagnosed, one of the big ones that I highlighted here is the avoidance. For a good while, and I think even to this day, one of the things that puts me on high alert and puts me in what's the word that was being used that you used a while ago?
Being startled?
No.
Wound up? Overly alert? Irritable?
Overly alert is being around crowds. And I think I've shared that with you. I never enjoyed going to the H-E-B to do groceries with you. I never did.
Thank goodness for curbside.
Yes, the advances, and that's.
I remember even like we went to Six Flags and you were just like
not happy.
No.
Yeah, I was.
Oh my god!
Edge.
We gotta go. We gotta. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like.
Yeah, you didn't understand it
I
at
didn't.
the time, and
I didn't.
You didn't even try to reason with me. You were just like,
I wasn't even empathetic at all. Why? Because BC, before Christ, but I mean, selfish. All I'm thinking about, like, what?
Well, I'm here to have fun.
Well, I'm here. We're here with the kids. Like, kind of suck it up, Buttercup. I mean, there was nothing. There was no Christ in our relationship. So of course, it was just I was only thinking about me.
Said than done. For you, it's easy to say, "Suck it up, Buttercup." But for the one experiencing it, it's like, man, being around crowds. Because do you know that in Iraq, the crowds would storm as you would pull in a convoy, that the crowds would crowd you. And there's merchants, they're trying to sell you all kinds of stuff, DVDs, alcohol, cigarettes, and all that. And while you're distracted with the crowd, guess what? Somebody's coming and dropping a hand grenade inside your Humvee and blowing y'all up while you're distracted. And there's not only American soldiers being killed, and you got people that are vendors that were innocently trying to just make a buck, make a dollar, make a living, selling to the GIs and getting blown up in the process. So now you had a mass killing there. Why? Because you had some insurgent, trying to just make a name for himself and blowing himself in the name of Allah,
Correct.
So to that, being around crowds, even in being in traffic, when we were in Iraq, we were the lions and they were the sheep. We owned the road. That's what they always told us. When we convoy, we were aggressively convoying. We're pushing cars off the road. We owned the road. And we would drive right in the center of the road. Why? Because the IEDs were on the side of the road. So if we stayed to the center of it, the blast will hopefully, you're going to get hit with an IED, but you minimize the blast. So all these things run through your mind. So now you think about it, okay, that happened in combat. You're not in combat no more. Yeah. But those experiences and you lived it, it's hard to turn it off.
Yeah.
And when you even try to turn it off and block it off, certain things bring back those memories
and triggers. And it could be anything. Like you said, it's part of the five senses.
So for me, the easiest way to avoid all that was avoidance. And it turns out that's one of the symptoms of having PTSD. You avoid certain things. And that's why I would
isolate, withdrawal.
I don't want to go do those things. Why? Because I don't want to relive that. Because I know that if I go there, something's gonna trigger.
Yeah. I remember even when we were part of the youth group, right? You were dealing with anxiety, and you were still you hadn't overcame, had been able to overcome it. And anytime we had any events at the beginning, you were like I'd be like, okay, you want to go? And you're like, no, I'm good. Like, you just like, so you're right. You were using avoidance because it was a fear, right? Is it going to trigger something? How am I going to feel? Is it going to affect me? Praise God that you don't have to worry about that. I mean, we were just at Peter Piper Pizza and it was packed.
Yeah.
We took the baseball boys that you were coaching.
Yeah.
And so look,
When I first walked in, it was, of course, now I think I've been able to manage it a lot better, and I don't try to show it to you guys because at the same time, I don't want to ruin your night or your day, from fun activities, just all because I don't want to be there. But was I sitting down?
No.
What was
standing.
I doing?
You were standing.
I was standing, even though we had 3 tables. I was standing.
Yeah.
What was I doing?
You were talking to people, but you were
Looking around.
Yeah.
I mean, I had chameleon eyes. One eye's on one person, the other eye's on somebody else, and I'm just, my head's on a swivel, just because, to me, it's unfamiliar territory, you know, and I got to be aware of my surroundings at all times. So, but back to a psalm. Of course, it's a psalm of David, but as I read it, I want you to just listen and see if you can hear.
Okay.
Where he's coming from, for the point in his life where he's
ready.
It's a Psalm of David.
Okay.
Psalm 25. O Lord, I give my life to you. I trust in you, my God. Do not let me be disgraced or let my enemies rejoice in my defeat. No one who trusts in you will ever be disgraced, but disgrace comes to those who try to deceive others. Show me the right path, O Lord. Point out the road for me to follow. Lead me by your truth and teach me, for you are the God who saves me. All day long I put my hope in you. Remember, O Lord, your compassion and unfailing love, which you have shown me from long ages past. Do not remember the rebellious sins of my youth. Remember me in light of your unfailing love, for you are merciful, O Lord. The Lord is good and does what is right. He shows the proper path to those who go astray. He leads the humble in doing right, teaching them his way. The Lord leads with unfailing love and faithfulness, and all who keep his covenant and obey his demands. For the honor of your name, O Lord, forgive my many sins. Who are those who fear the Lord? Who are those who fear the Lord? He will show them the path they should choose. They will live in prosperity, and their children will inherit the land. The Lord is a friend to those who fear him. He teaches them his covenant. My eyes are always on the Lord, for he rescues me from the traps of my enemies. And it continues to go on. It's a lot longer. Turn to me and have mercy, for I am alone in deep distress. My problems go from bad to worse. Oh, save me from them all. Feel my pain and see my trouble. Forgive all my sins. See how many enemies I have and how viciously they hate me. Protect me. Rescue my life from them. Do not let me be disgraced, for in you I take refuge. My integrity and honesty protect me, for I put my hope in you. O God, ransom Israel from all its troubles. And that's the whole Psalm 25. But it sounds like he's pleading to God. He's asking him, man, he's even asking him, forgive me of my sins. Protect me, rescue my life from them. Do not let me disgrace. The word disgrace came in several times. He doesn't, whatever he did, whatever he's going through, he doesn't want to be disgraced. He wants to be honored, you know, and it even goes back to verse number 3. No one who trusts in you will ever be disgraced. So he's saying, I'm putting all my trust in you, O Lord. So therefore I cannot be disgraced, you know. So there's something he's not proud of. And to some of us soldiers, there's some things that they might not be proud of. I can honestly say I come with a clean conscience, knowing that everything I did, I'm proud of what I did.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't take anything away from my service as far as like, oh, I regret this, or I left the military with no regrets. Not everybody can say the same thing. Some guys went through some tough times and far more tougher than I did, right? The grunts, the infantry guys, the guys that were in Fallujah, those guys that experienced some bad things, you know, there's some things that they just wish they never experienced and want to leave over there completely, and they regret those things. I honestly don't. I've been shot at and I shot back, but I don't regret that because it was my life or their life. So with that being said, you know, David is going through the same thing. Something is troubling him, and he's pleading to the Lord, and he doesn't want to be disgraced. He wants to be honored, and he's even asking, "Forgive me of my sins, whatever it takes, but show me the path that I must go." All these things he keeps repeating. So
when I think about David and even Saul, right? Because Saul was similar, right? We know that King Saul was the first king, and then he. When you think about both and you compare both, because then David eventually became king after, of course, Samuel, he was anointed by Samuel, and there was envy between Saul and David and all that. But when you think about both of them, but there's a difference, and this is what I really want to kind of talk about and connect it. But so David, right? What did he do? So he struggled, right? He struggled with his own sinful behavior at times, right? We know that from what we read there in the word. He struggled with, disobedience. He struggled with his own sinful nature, right? I mean, we're not perfect. He struggled, and he always, right, poured his heart out to God. And that's what I feel like really. So when you think about why David was called, why God said, "You are a man after my own heart."
It's because he always came to God and he showed God his heart every single time.
He did. So he didn't have to be perfect, right? He didn't have to, have it all together or know everything. No, all he had to do was
come back to God.
Yeah, but talk to God about it, right? And I feel like that was the difference, because Saul didn't do that, right? Saul didn't pour his heart out to God. As a matter of fact, he grew deeper in disobedience and distanced himself from God. And what did that lead to?
Well, a troubled mind.
Yeah, troubled mind.
I think at the end he suffered.
Now, David, exactly. Now David had a troubled mind too, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to get to. They both seem to have troubled minds, okay? But you have a choice. You have a decision to make, right? The first thing is, I mean, many of you, when you come back from war, or even when somebody experiences a situation, they don't want to talk about it. They don't. You didn't want to talk about it when you came back. I mean, at all. Like, you didn't want to tell me. I remember asking you one time, and you were like, "I don't want to talk about it." And I'm like, "Okay, well, doesn't it doesn't it help to talk about it?" You're like, "I don't want to talk about it." I'm like,
so
"Okay."
Answer to that, and maybe some other soldiers might relate to me and might agree with me. Some of them may not, but sharing with you, I don't think you would understand. That's just plain and simple. Unless you were there and experienced it, you wouldn't understand.
And that's what you told me,
so the
actually.
only person that I can talk to is somebody who was there, which is my battle buddies, the guys that I served with that were there, that understood, that did walk a mile in those shoes with me.
I agree to some extent, because I guess for me was, I didn't want you to share to me so that I could understand, right? It's kind of like when I share something with you, it's, oh, I want you to, you might not understand me. But remember when we talk about just to give somebody a shoulder to cry on, to be able to have somebody just be there for them, right? That's what's key. And that's what David did. Of course, he went to God, and that's who you want to go to. But sometimes you're going to need a little bit more than just going to God. And that's where we come in, right? Yeah. We want to connect people to support, to the help that they may need. Talking to somebody that can just listen to their experiences, to everything that they experience that was traumatic for them, and then be able to provide. There's so many different things that they do now with eye movement, exercises, and a lot of different great resources that help you cope and kind of help some of those triggers and those flashbacks and those memories. That can help somebody that's really struggling with PTSD.
Yeah.
Right.
So I know you mentioned Saul and David as a comparison, but I also think about Judas and Peter.
Yeah.
One was forgiven, and one came in full circle to, hey, I did,
I denied you 3 times.
I denied you 3 times, but forgive me and let's move forward. And,
yes.
And he was restored.
Correct.
Whereas the other one just kept it in and went to his grave with it, and
yes,
and
and
he
committed
took his own
suicide.
life.
He
Yeah.
did. And so, you know, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You are not alone. And that's
Don't
that's
bottle
why
it up.
don't bottle up. And
Don't
that's
be
why we
Judas.
want to talk about this, because I feel like, you know, people are ashamed, or people don't feel like they have someone that they can talk to. You just said it right now. I didn't feel I could talk to you because you wouldn't understand.
Right.
Well, okay, it's okay. I may not understand, but I'm still here to support you, right? Or I'm still here for you. Or connect with somebody who will understand. And there's
But I
so
think
many
throughout the years,
people.
now
Well, yeah,
that
now
you
it's a
learn-
different
yeah.
story. Absolutely. But
I
I
can
was just
share,
talking about
yeah.
back then, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's how you felt back then. But how many people feel that way right now?
Right.
That they don't have the support. They don't have, you know, anyone to talk to or anyone to go to that would care. We care. We care. You know, that's what it's about.
Every
So,
life is precious. And
is.
your
It
life
is.
means so much to somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah, to someone. There's somebody out there that
If you can't find that someone, God definitely cares about your life.
Yeah.
There's a purpose for your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So pushing through, you got this, right? If you're struggling with PTSD, make sure that you reach out, you let us know. But we hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure that you share, you like, you subscribe. We want to thank you so much for tuning in to Faith Connections, where we connect you to your
faith.